Welcome to Light the Path, the podcast that brings you inspiring stories of courage, strength, and faith. Listen in as we explore how God's love and grace can inspire and motivate us to overcome life's challenges and light the path forward.
Hello, Pathfinders. How are y'all? How is it going? What are you up to today? I appreciate you for tuning in to Light the Path podcast. I'm your host, Deborah the Queen. I am so thankful that you're here. Make sure that you subscribe. That way you can get all notifications of when new podcasts are up. And just like every other podcast, I have to say, you're going to thoroughly enjoy this podcast. Let me get my glasses on because this is going to be so good. Leaders, I need you to lean in because this is for you. Emerging leaders, this is for you. Listen, let me read his bio because y'all going to enjoy this one because this is our first presidential appointee on Light the Path podcast. Yes, let me get into it. Navy combat veteran, presidential appointee, keynote speaker, coach. He guides businesses in elevating solid performers to exceptional leaders. You want to be exceptional? You are in the right place. Light the Path Pathfinders, help me welcome Raymond D. Kemp Sr., if you will, to Light the Path podcast.
Hello. Great to see you, Queen.
Thank you. Good to see you. Thank you so much for being here today. When I think leadership, you're the first thing that pops in my head because of your post, because it is just saturated with so much leadership and it's so many gems that you put out there. I was like, I got to get them on the show.
Awesome.
Because I want to be elevated too. So I appreciate you taking the time. And this is the first thing I have to ask you because this is the first of Light the Path to have a presidential appointee. Tell us how this happened and what does this really mean?
Look, let me tell you something. For the majority of my life, I have been let's just go see what happens type of guy. I go to the weight room. I don't have a 1 rep max. I'm one of those folks that tells my partner, let's just go see what's happening. What happened when I joined the Navy was exactly that. I figured out the path for the structure that goes along with getting advanced to the next rank, made my way forward, in the rank structure. And I was like, man, I wonder if there's a limit. And there wasn't. I made it to what they called the ceiling. And what was once the ceiling then became my floor. And I was standing on it. And so when I got out of the Navy, I joined a group called National Security. I was asked and invited, somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, would you mind joining this group, National Security Leaders for America? I said, yes, wrote a couple of articles. The president of the United States was selected, President Joe Biden. And the next thing you know, I got another tap on the shoulder and said, hey, I think you'd be a great fit for this position, which is a commissioner on the American Battle Monuments Commission. And I said yes. So that a long way of saying, I don't even know. Somebody tapped me on the shoulder. I said yes. And that was the end of that.
So good. It's good to have those people around that think of you when you're not around, right? So that is beautiful. So with this, I got to make sure I stay on track with this because the intersection of service and leadership, your work as a presidential appointee to the ABMC, let me get this right now, speaks to your dedication to service. How do you blend the values of service, sacrifice, and grace in your leadership coaching for business professionals?
Sure. The way I do that is to be very conscious that I was given a gift of leadership. I didn't have any hard lessons when it comes to figuring things out, when it comes to leadership. Very naturally, I'm a little bit gregarious, though I'm an introvert in an extrovert's job. But I have a measure of understanding of how to communicate with people at a level that they understand and feel comfortable communicating. One way of doing that is by showing up with the right attitude, having the right measure of belief and character that precedes you, right? Attitude, belief, and character, the ABCs of leadership. And because I was given this gift, well, where I'm from, you're given a gift to give. And so I think it is just my reasonable service to give unto others out of the gift that I've been given. And the way I do that and convey that to other leaders is by helping them understand their why, how, and what in life. For example, my why in life is to find a better way, share it with other people. How I do that is by challenging the status quo and traditional thinking. What I bring, I'm talking about to an individual, to a group, to an organization, what I bring is going to be a contribution to others. And so when I help leaders figure out what their why, how, and what is, then they too can serve out of their strength. They can serve out of their gift in a way where they could be what we used to call a servant leader.
Yes, so good. So transitioning from combat to leadership, you have a unique background as a Navy combat veteran. How does your military experience shape your leadership philosophy? And how do you bring that perspective to coaching business leaders? Because we're civilians over here. We don't know the Navy way. So how do you incorporate the two?
Well, it's funny. Last week, Thursday, I had the opportunity to go to Collin College and speak in their business department to the leadership track. And we had a really interesting conversation. What I titled it was Lessons from Combat to Campus, building leaders that last. What happens is that though there are instances that may happen in the combat zone that will not happen in the workplace, what does happen is a measure of emotion. What does happen is mindset. And what also happens is someone's ability to trust in their training. And so in the workplace, those very same things happen, whether it be in the combat zone or whether it be at your house with your family, because leaders are everywhere, by the way. There were some people in line at the grocery store the other day. It was like 6 people, but 2 were going one way and 4 were going the other. And I was like, hey, maybe we should just line up this way. We all get in line because leaders lead wherever we are. And so when it comes down to translating, it's at first drawing similarities to the things that are important, back to the ABCs, right? Attitude, belief, and character. And then I also know just fast learning organizations, whether they be military or corporate, they do 4 things really well. They see, they solve, they share, and provide feedback. See, solve, share, provide feedback. And so reminding corporate leaders that is the way to stimulate innovation, then it creates that commonality. So it's important to, where I'm from, we want to meet people at the level, wherever their level is, we want to meet there. If someone wants a biblical reference, okay, well, let's use those references for leadership, because there is magnificent leadership in the Bible, regardless of a person's belief. The stories and the anecdotes and the proverbs that are in there are meaningful. And so finding that common language and the common perspective, and then expressing different ways to execute.
So good, because what about this then? When you transform those solid performers into exceptional leaders, in your experience, because you mentioned this, what's the most important mindset shift that helps solid performers into exceptional leaders? So once you get them on that equal playing field, how do you make sure that mindset shift is there?
The biggest mindset shift that I have noticed lately is when communicating with leaders, helping them see the value of the we, not me mindset is just a absolute force multiplier. When people realize that it really doesn't matter who is going to get the credit for this thing, because we as a team are going forward. When they realize and trust that the leader is not going to be the one taking all the credit and throwing it in their sack, and then at the end of the year they get this gigantic bonus on the strength of what everybody else was doing. No, very sincerely create that psychologically safe space, right? It's been very common. It's been said, and the credit has been given to Maya Angelou, that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so when you express that measure of care, and people believe that authentically, you believe we, not me, then that innovation jumps like nobody's business. And it's odd to me almost the people who don't realize that. And so that mindset shift, that we not me mindset, seems to be the biggest jump and the most rewarding.
So good. That's so good. It's we and not me. I think that's a key factor right there, especially when you are in leadership, to bring everyone along with you. So as a Navy combat veteran, you have faced intense situations. How does the concept of grace under pressure apply to both military and business leadership? And how can you help leaders cultivate this quality in themselves to still be graceful in these intense situations instead of making everybody else chaotic?
Right. Well, for me, particularly in the combat zone, I mean, from my perspective, grace is just unmerited favor. And so there have been hostile situations where I just really didn't know what was going to happen next. I didn't know what was going to happen for the team, even for myself when we were in a small group. And the commitment to excellence, to fair treatment of all, drove me from the insides to keep on pressing, really not knowing, and then coming back unscathed, coming back with all the team members or on a ship, coming back with all of the entire crew and all the aircraft like we did on Harry S. Truman. That to me is that unmerited favor that is just driven by faith. What happens in a non-combat environment is that when we just yield to doing our level best, on Harry S. Truman's aircraft carrier, about 5,500 people when we were out on deployment. And for your listeners, if they've never, and those who may be watching, if you've ever seen the Empire State Building, perhaps in a photo, or maybe you've been to New York, if you imagine just plucking it up and lay it in the water next to an aircraft carrier, it's about the same size. Huge group of folks. But what happens for us is the mindset, back to the we, not me environment, is that creates a measure of energy. And in the combat zone, sure, it's stressful, and there are things that are hard that happens. What happens in the workplace, let's say in the Empire State Building, sure, there is also stressful environments that may come up. But when we realize that we're in it together and that we're giving our level best, that we're doing those 4 things I just mentioned, to see, solve, share, and provide feedback, and giving of our innermost self, serving one another, then that grace is going to come. That unmerited favor, we will figure this thing out. And there is no challenge that's greater than our imagination is to solve it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the idea to solve it. And so creating that space in the corporate space, or in whatever measure of business, whether it be manual labor, or whether it be folks sitting at a desk or working hybrid, as the case may be, that perspective and that leaning in to those that style is the solution for sure.
So good. So good. Can you share a story where you had to overcome significant obstacles and how that experience actually shaped your leadership style? Because you said you were born a leader. So what other experiences really helped shape it, especially your style?
So the style, stylistically speaking, I mean, the challenges are, there's so many things that just went wrong, and had to figure it out. I grew up on the east side of Oklahoma City, and entered into the Navy in 1986. Very highly, racially charged environment. I was into communications and intelligence, and in that time frame, as I was coming up, very often I was the only one in the room. And now I'll just speak about style. My style has always had to be non-combative, though I'm a challenge by nature. It had to be non-combative because, again, I'm the only one in the room. And so if it turned into, well, he said, and he said, then I'm on the losing end of that. And so to be very diplomatic and apolitical in my engagement was very important. And so learning how to speak in a way that was sharp enough to get my point across, but blunt enough to ensure that no one was injured when I said it, was driven out of necessity. Now, the challenges, when that came up, and I'll tell you just one that's very soft and probably translate to the corporate world. We had one of the most senior leaders in the Navy we were in a space with all the senior leaders. Now, the admiral who is in charge of the officers picks everyone who makes it to the highest levels. So there's what we call 4-star admirals, 3 stars, choosing one. We're in a meeting with only 4 and 3-star admirals, the most senior people. He said to the Master Chief of the Navy, who was the most senior enlisted person, he said, you should choose the 4 people, the 4 fleet Master Chiefs, the same way I choose the 3-star and 4-star admirals. And the Master Chief of the Navy came to the 3 of us who were fleet Master Chiefs and said, here's what he was thinking about doing. And I'm listening to these folks exchange information back and forth and their opinion, their perspective, and everyone basically agreed with the senior guy. And that's just not my get down. And so I said, well, were you guys just in the 3-star, 4-star event? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, and the admiral, the chief of naval operations, chose all the people in their uniform. And they're like, yeah, exactly. All the 3-stars and 4-star, he chooses them. I was like, oh, okay. And you guys think that would be okay for the Master Chief of the Navy to do that? Maybe you didn't realize that of the 60 people or whatever the number was that were in there, I was the only Black person in uniform. I'm not sure if that would be indicative of the complexion, very frankly, of the Navy. I mean, so I hear you guys having this conversation. I'm a hard no, by the way. I think the process that we have is as close as we can get to fair and equitable as possible. But over to you. And so there may be environments where we have to stand for what's right rather than take a knee and follow what everybody else is doing.
So good. I mean, and that was really a critical time, especially when you would think, and I'm just saying, just the majority of people will go with the majority just so you don't cause a rift. And to be able to speak up like that, that lets me know that it's really innate for us to do that. Like it's in you, but then we go against that and say, you know what, I'm just not going to rock the boat, the ship.
Yeah, well done.
You were able to do that. So where did you feel that confidence come from? Is it because you knew your job, or you just knew that like that was the truth? You were standing on truth, because 2 things can be true at the same time. What they were saying was true. This is how he picked them. Right. But then what you were saying also by saying that everybody wasn't representing how it should be.
Right. Well, there's a couple of things that happen, right? I grew up in an era where my pastor, as a child, marched with Martin Luther King. And so I heard tons of King quotes when I was growing up because that was the era, and he was extremely quotable and intelligent. And he mentioned, and I'm paraphrasing, he mentioned, you can't get to the top of a dark stairwell without first taking a step of faith. And so from my perspective, okay, you take that step into the unknown, and then you keep taking steps until you get to the top of the staircase, and then you turn around and shine a light so everybody else can come. I'm sorry, but I'm so passionate about the responsibility to lift and climb, to climb and lift. And so you climb those steps, lift others to come with you, then you turn around and you shine a light so everybody can come. There's a poet who once said that I started from the bottom and now we're here. And the very true fact is that the reason that we all here is because we're climbing and lifting. And I think that came from seeing, I was raised by some fierce angels. My mom, I was a product of a single mother. And I was the only child and up until I was 40 when I met my biological father and a bunch of brothers. But nonetheless, the thing is that when we are willing, when we see what right looks like, my mother was and my grandmother just fierce, didn't take no junk from anybody. That created in me. I mean, I have my own nature and my own natural measure of leadership, but that helped me identify the genetic marker of I don't really give a care what you think, but you're gonna get this right here, and I can't let that go. And at that time, I was one of the most senior people in the Navy, and so technically, I was talking to a peer.
There you go. Let's get that correct, okay? When peers talk, this is how we talk.
Right.
So good, so good. So I want to stop right here for a little moment to talk to the future leaders, future leaders. So let's just talk to maybe the next two generations behind us,
Sure.
the future of leadership development as business continues to evolve. How do
Right.
you see leadership development shifting over the next decade? What advice would you give to today's leaders to stay ahead in a rapidly changing world?
Right. Yeah. So the secret sauce, the key to absolute success is being tightly bound with others that you trust. And so one of the ways that great leaders talk about their mechanism for success is through mentorship and sponsorship. And so what I would add to, a mentor being someone who basically says, hey, get your finger in my belt loop and keep up. Let me show you how it's done. A sponsor is that person, as you mentioned earlier, who's in a room that you don't even know about, who's saying your name, who's putting your name on a list you didn't even know was there, who is speaking on your behalf without you even. That's what sponsors do. But that peer-to-peer, shoulder to shoulder, locked arms perspective, that is absolutely the key for these younger people and the younger generation who don't naturally have that in place. In days when all we had was each other to play with, rather than devices that we can hold in our hand, then we were tightly woven together. I fully believe and have observed that young people are absolutely, connected and woven together, but it's in a very social and not a very tangible way. One of the things that happened when I got attached to my first ship, the person in charge of assignments put me into this manual labor division, and he said that well, first of all, there's this word that's so polarizing that we don't even say the word anymore. We just say the letter that it starts with, the N word. And so he said to me, I don't allow any insert word, N word, into the computer room. So you're going to go down here and you're going to do this manual labor, painting and driving a forklift and chipping paint and laying down tile and all this manual labor stuff. And I was at the top of my class, as an information systems person. Nonetheless, I went down there where he had sent all the other black and brown people. Well, mostly black because there weren't that many, but nonetheless, I went down there and I saw people who were at the rank that I wanted to be, and they clicked in with me because we had that racial marker. And I'm still friends with some of those folks today. What he meant for my back turned out to be for my good. And so when I say that we are stronger together, as we say in NATO, we are stronger together, that's an absolute true fact. And so what I would encourage young people is certainly, reach into as much history as you can, as much education as you can, maximize AI and all of the flexibility that goes along with that, do it in a moral way. And what will separate young leaders from the pack is connecting with known good assets, regardless of age and generation, connecting with those known good folks. And I promise you, they will accelerate at a pace well beyond others. There's a saying on my block that if you want to go fast, go by yourself. But if you want to, if you want to go far, go with folks who you can trust.
Yes, absolutely. Such great advice. Mr. Kemp, tell us, what do you do for fun? Because all this leadership, tell us, what do you do for fun? Tell us about your book that you took time during COVID time to write. Tell us about your book.
So building resilience for hybrid success came out of a conversation I was having with a buddy. I said, like, in the midst of the George Floyd, social nightmare that we were going through and COVID, I said, man, what a great time to be a leader. And he's like, man, you don't understand, these young people this, and we're not even in the office anymore, and so on and so forth. And so I started sending him a text to follow up on this conversation that we had. And then the text just turned into an email because I had more to say. And then it turned into the book. And so the book, what I would like to emphasize is chapter 9 talks about what are the 5 pillars of building resilience. And those pillars, I call it the TICAG. those pillars, TICAG. So those pillars are trust, first and foremost, inclusivity or inclusion, collaboration, adaptability, and growth. See, when you trust people, you're more willing to include them. Once you've included a group of folks, that we, not me, once you've included them, then you're more willing to collaborate. And that's where amazing, innovative ideas come from. Once you have once you have gotten together and collaborated, then what ends up happening is the adaptability. When a challenge comes, you're agile, mobile, and hostile, right? And then lastly, once you have done that, then you're willing to grow, and whether that means the bottom line for stakeholders or otherwise. And so it was a pleasure to sit down and write and get ideas from others and then lay them out. And it's on Amazon. It's an Amazon bestseller for a while. And so if your leaders are ever, your listeners are ever interested, it's on the internet machine and via Amazon. But it is work that I fully believe that when a leader just takes the time to read through, they will pick up some skills that they can immediately put to work.
Yes. And what I would like to do is also give a listener or a viewer, whichever way they do it, I'll run a contest and have someone, speak or comment on the thing, and I'll put a draw, and then they'll receive your book. I'll get it from you, get it signed, and we'll get it to people. Pathfinders, look forward to that. You'll be able to find all Raymond's information in the description box of this. You'll be able to find the link to connect with him on social media. Let them know where they can find you at.
Yeah, on social media, I'm Raymond D. Kemp on all social platforms. I'm Raymond Kemp Sr. on LinkedIn. And of course, you can go to my website, which is raymondkemp.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Kemp. We appreciate your time and attention to this. Leaders, lean into this episode. Share this with a leader that you love and that you admire, and empower them to keep growing. And remember, Pathfinders, that not sharing your experiences is not only empowering, it can help light